When I grew up, and especially when I was in high school, the word vocation held the connotation of working in trades, plumbers, electricians, carpenters, and such. In my mind, people either worked in vocations, or in management, or in professions. This was reinforced by the term VOTEC, or vocational technical training. I was also at least vaguely aware, because I grew up in a majority Catholic city, that there was also a religious connotation to vocations, at least for Catholics, and for them it referred to people who were ordained to the priesthood. It was not until seminary that I began to explore the whole idea of vocation and began to appreciate the much broader way we Protestants use the term. In fact, I think it's overdue for a re-examination and an enhanced place in our tradition. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Thursday, October 16th, 2025. So the word vocation itself comes from a Latin term, vocare, meaning to call. Its root meaning refers to the idea that we are called by God to be disciples of Jesus Christ. We are called out from humanity to be disciples, followers of Jesus, bearing witness to God's redeeming and reconciling love in Jesus Christ. In this respect, we have a common calling as Christians, and one that is religious in nature. In the long history of the church, the idea of vocation came to mean religious work. Hence, in the Roman Catholic Church, vocations meant ordination to the offices of deacon, priest, or bishop. People who engaged in secular work were not considered to have a vocation besides the most basic commitment to be disciples. As an almost inevitable result, the church typically elevated the religious vocations as being of greater value than so-called secular work. The Reformation saw a complete rethinking of this divide. Both Martin Luther and later John Calvin spoke of vocations much more broadly. Both considered religious work as no more important or spiritually significant than any other kind of work. Calvin, in fact, saw certain other so-called non-religious vocations as actually higher callings than ministry in the church. As a result of this revolution, both men saw common labor as spiritually significant for one very important reason. It contributes to the common good in society. Now, obviously, some jobs require more skill than others. Some jobs require more education than others, but no job can be considered as qualitatively more important, for all alike contribute to the common good. The farmer grows crops and raises animals to provide food. The grocer brings food for families to buy to put meals on the table. The carpenter builds houses to provide shelter, as well as tables, chairs, and other furniture for people to live with. The tailor makes clothes, and the cobbler makes shoes to protect people from the elements, and on it goes. Even the street sweeper keeps the town clean, meaning not only a more pleasant place to live, but a place where disease is less likely to run rampant. For the reformers, all contribute something important for the well-being of the whole community. But there's also something else going on here. The reformers perceived that to the extent that people contributed to the common good, they were doing holy work, God's work, every bit as much as the preacher, and in many respects even more. Bankers, lawyers, doctors, soldiers, and even government officials. In fact, it always surprises people to know that John Calvin, in particular, counted the service of government officials as a higher calling than the call to ministry. Which leads to one final element of vocation. The reformers understood that different people have different abilities and sensibilities. Not all alike have gifts for ministry. Not all alike have gifts for medicine, or law, or banking, or farming, or anything else for that matter. They saw the varieties of gifts as part and parcel of each individual's vocation. What are you called to do? What is your vocation? Well, the first clue is to ask about your innate talents and abilities. good with numbers but have terrible hand-eye coordination? Maybe accounting or bookkeeping is a better fit than, say, carpentry. The sad fact, though, is that once again society has placed a higher value on some jobs than upon others. Mowing yards and collecting garbage are seen as menial, undignified tasks, when the reality is that both contribute greatly to the common good, much more than we realize. The result is that those who do these kinds of things do not command the respect of others. And that means that people often do not take pride in their work or receive satisfaction, let alone make a decent wage. But imagine what life would be like without these so-called menial jobs. I shudder to think. But then imagine if, as a society, we valued these jobs and those who perform them. I dare say we would all live happier, more contented, and healthier lives. One final word. I've been speaking of only one facet of vocation, the part that deals with paid work. But the truth is that we all have multiple vocations, not only what we are paid to do, but also the other areas of our lives. We may be called to be husbands or wives. We may be called to be parents or grandparents. We may be called to be community volunteers. All of these are also elements of the idea of vocation. What a difference it would make if we all understood our whole lives to be part of a holy calling from God, and that everything we do potentially contributes to the common good and hence to the glory of God. Tomorrow, let's talk about wisdom. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.